The Pontiffs Anonymous podcast network is sponsored by McKelvey Insurance Group. If you've ever felt confused or overwhelmed by insurance, McKelvey Insurance Group keeps it simple. They're an independent agency, which means they compare options from multiple providers to find coverage that actually fits you, not just one provider's policy. There's no pressure and no jargon, just honest guidance and real help. Call Evan McKelvey at 618-623-0080 or reach out to us at Pontiffs Anonymous and we'd be happy to connect the dots. They will save you money and they'll save it for you in less than 24 hours. Call Evan. This episode of Needed to Hear That is brought to you by Light Source. What do we need when we're in the dark? Sometimes it's simply just a light source. That you lead this more educational, Chaz.
I prefer it that way. I'm more suited.
How are you doing tonight?
Great. Happy Memorial Day.
Yes, very. That's oxymoron. We enjoy Memorial Day. I'm a big reason for the season guy.
Sure.
You know, they built them different back then.
I've heard.
I mean, I did post, my Uncle John, who was killed in Vietnam and stuff like that. So it's Memorial Day's I think it can breed the respect and the gratitude for what is the ultimate sacrifice.
Sure. I'm a fan of respect and gratitude.
Sure, yeah.
And not everybody offers everybody that.
No, they don't. I will say that this weekend we've been talking a lot lately about parasocial to prosocial. Maybe not on this podcast. I don't need to hear that.
Get me up to speed.
But, in the business meetings I haven't invited you to and things like that. There's been a lot of talk about parasocial and prosocial. I just send you an email, a DocuSign, and say sign this. Don't run it by your attorney or anything, and sign it. We're good to go. I appreciate your blind trust. But parasocially, I have Kyle Busch's hat here on the table. There's something you get attached to these race car drivers. And he was dynamic. For those of you that don't know, he lost his life on the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. This is Memorial Day Monday. This episode drops Friday, a couple days after we record. But he had a brutal sinus infection, played through it, quote unquote. I think he was getting symptom relieving medications from some high-end doctors that they have access to, but he wouldn't get out of the racing simulator, wouldn't get out of the private jets. And I mean private jets because you fly from track to track all across the country. These guys are racing every day of the week. He's chasing his kid who's racing across the country. And I bring it up because it's a very high altitude and does no wonders to sinuses. Developed into double pneumonia, died of sepsis, 41 years old.
Terrible.
And being a motorsports fan, I'm going to avoid some of the wrestling talk this week.
We'll probably get there.
For Holly's purposes. But the biggest weekend in motorsports is Memorial Day weekend. Mm-hmm. It's usually the Monaco Grand Prix, which they moved, but then the Indy 500 and then the Coca-Cola 600, the NASCAR race. And then when one of the most prolific, most talented drivers in North America, let alone the world, dies suddenly, and he's got a very public profile. His wife's got a very public profile. They do a ton of work for IVF. His son Brexton, his daughter Lennox, his son has been winning races since before he could probably push a chair across the ice. I mean, he's been in every car, and they're saying he's prodigy type level good. So the good thing And the bad thing about social media, or the good thing and the bad things. The good thing is this one, there was a lot of people that hated Kyle Busch because of the way he played the game, quote unquote.
Sure. He was a hard driving guy, pardon the pun.
Yeah. And Rowdy was his nickname. And he also, I wouldn't say he had a little Tortorella in him, but with the media, he could play some games.
Sure.
Be a little tough interview.
A little surly.
You got it.
Sure.
And everybody's poured out a love and pictures of his wife and his son. So it was a Memorial Day, man. Like you think about it, and then it was Charlie's favorite driver. He was, and Charlie's over it, I'm sure. But
Charlie's a deep thinker.
Yeah. But he wore his Kyle Busch stuff to the Indy 500. I took him to the race. Wild day in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
Good race. You guys were there, but not at the
We
track.
were also in Indy, but did not have a wild day. Had a beautiful day with Granny and then
Granny.
A graduation party. So,
Nice.
yeah, it was nice. Nice and quiet day.
Yeah, we were with 400,000 screaming, yelling race fans. Great race. Most lead changes in history and closest finish in history. But when you and I were talking about Kyle Busch and how quickly we've talked about this a couple times, but I immediately go to like, fuck if something happened to Ashley.
Sure.
And Holly would have to, she'd need to go first.
That's what she says.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what she says. That's statistically unlikely.
Because of age.
Yeah. But for the sake of the topic, suddenness could take any of us.
Yes. And I also, being in the, it's been a hard, like there has been real grief to this. I know it's parasocial. I know I don't have a friendship with Kyle Busch. I don't know him, but you start thinking about, and it's because it's so publicized and it's on every feed, and it's obviously it's a part of a community that I subscribe to, the motorsports community. So I'm in all the chats. I'm on Twitter or X, whatever they call it now. And
sure.
Watch the race. Spend a lot of time
chronically online is what we call that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Having been the son of a sudden dead dad, and then like, I know this may sound a little conceited.
No.
I like the thought of like, I can't go yet. I can't fuck Charlie up like that. I
sure.
And I know that sounds like I'm patting myself on the back that I'm like father of the year here, but
of all the ways you could mess him up, that's the one you're hoping to prevent.
You got it.
Got it.
I think I know, in all seriousness, we have a really good bond, and I'm his dad.
Everybody might give you trouble, but I don't think anybody should really go as far as to presume that you're not a good father if they're listening.
So I think about Tom dying, and I think about if something were to happen to me, Charlie, like now or soon. Like Charlie's not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
He needs a little bit more CP, and I need more of him. Like I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, there was a little flicker there where it started with, oh my God, what if something happened to Ashley?
Yeah.
And then it pivoted to, I don't think.
I don't want. It's too hard to talk about. Listen, I can't go there because I'm fucked up. I missed her for one night.
There was a lot of people. The disclaimer that I would put on this conversation as we talk about kind of like anything can happen, but like the disclaimer that I would put on it is I am not a consistent NASCAR fan. I don't know. I am of a world where SportsCenter was my education.
Sure.
So I watched SportsCenter every day of my life multiple times from the age of like 7. You see just like had to Kilborn and, Kilborn, Dan Patrick and Stu Scott and even Olbermann, all of those before he went. Yeah. Linda Cohn.
You can't mention them in the same sentence anymore. I think they're battling.
Yeah, I don't think they get along. And but the internet would have ruined that too. So
right? You think they're all great?
I just wanted to watch the highlights. It's a 60-minute show with the 51
like the
51-minute mark. They're going to show the Coyotes highlights, and I really want to see how Hobby Bullen did last night. As a result of that, I have the benefit of being somebody that just kind of knows a little bit about most sports,
Right.
I mean, Holly loves. She's a phenomenal tennis player. We love watching tennis. And when we first started watching tennis, and I would reference anything, she's like, "How do you even know this?" And I'm like, "Sports Center, man. Like, I know that's Michael Chang, bro. Like, I know
Sampras and Agassi were a big deal.
Yeah, I know all of those. It's just like kind of the world. And so my knowledge of NASCAR is going to be similar to that, right? Like I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen. I years of the Dick Trickle jokes, all that.
Never won a cup race.
But with Kyle Busch, of course I know who Kyle Busch is, and of course I know how prolific he was as a racer and his reputation as being rowdy and a very tough personality. I watched a little bit this weekend from Marty Smith.
I love Marty.
And, Marty was interviewing people and stuff. And a lot of the comparison that kept coming up naturally was Kobe. It was Kobe Bryant dying at 41, in a crash.
We lost our Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, and that kind of ran through.
With his daughter, Kobe, right?
Yeah,
in the helicopter.
Both of those are examples of guys who just had a reputation as being a tough personality. For reasons that were related to their success, right? Like you couldn't separate the personality from the success. The idea of a less intense Kyle Busch or a less intense Kobe Bryant would not be affiliated with winning in the level that they did. Mm-hmm. As people might suspect from my therapeutic and spiritual discussions on here, the winning at all cost mentality is not always something that I super connect to or relate to, but I would never disrespect as someone's ethos. Right? Like I would never say oh, that's just a terrible way to live your life because
you didn't like those bag skates.
I don't want to tell anybody it was a terrible way to live their life. But, one of the guys that I saw interviewed, and this is probably the only reason I gave this disclaimer, because I feel like no matter what NASCAR drivers you mention, somebody's going to be like, "I can't believe you're listening to that." Just, everybody dislikes somebody. But I saw Brad Keselowski and I saw Bubba Wallace, and Bubba Wallace was talking about having a relationship with Kyle Busch is this is a person who made me the kind of person I am today. And when people are in these kind of sudden loss moments, one of the things that comes up is oh my God, a formative part of my personality is missing. And you can't make any sense of that if you have decades to prepare.
Sure.
Much less if you have negative 2 days to prepare, and I have a real admiration, watching some of the Marty Smith stuff and everything. I do have an admiration. I mean, gosh, these, you still go out there, right? they're still racing.
Well,
it's, to somebody, and I don't mean in general, I mean yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't mean they're still going to go through with these races. I mean, no, show must go on kind of thing.
The president of NASCAR said Kyle Busch would be pissed if we didn't race this week.
And
I believe I wholeheartedly can hear Kyle. I'm convicted that that's an accurate statement.
Sure. Well, but that's what we do. I mean, that is to be a little therapist-y about it, right? That's an example of what we consider those continuing bonds, right? Everybody right now that loved and knew Kyle Busch still has a relationship with Kyle Busch.
Sure.
They still, the president of NASCAR is my relationship with Kyle Busch tells me that today he would want us to race, right? It's a continuing bond. Now, you don't consider that strange at all when it's a Sunday and the person passed away on Thursday, right? There is no such thing as strange grief behavior in there, but
Tom still cusses me out. It's been 14 years.
Yeah, I mean that's those examples of you mentioned the parasocial as like, oh, I know I didn't know him, and I know we should never diminish that. I remember as a therapist, I remember what it was like for people when Robin Williams died.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people. I mean, if clearly people that we don't know pass away every day, and celebrities that we know of but maybe don't feel a connection to pass away every day. And it's shocking, or it might be shocking instances, or it might be, too young or something like that. But when you really feel you have a relationship with somebody, Robin Williams, I thought was a great example. I talked to a lot of people that were just like, man, not only did they love him, but there was just something about like, oh gosh, even Robin Williams couldn't get to the other side of some of this. Like there was, like where you're watching
because of the way he died.
Yeah, I mean, you're just watching certain things where, I mean, it was even, I know very little detail about what happened to Robin Williams. So through the grapevine, I think I had heard some things about like he had a diagnosis that was a terminal diagnosis, and that there's something related to his health,
I didn't know
and
that.
then and that even that was something that I think like made it more comfortable for people to talk about, like people culturally, not people in my office, like the world at large had an easier time communicating about like, oh, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. And it's like, no, it doesn't. None of it is going to make sense. We so desperately want it to make sense.
Boy, don't we?
None of it is going to make sense. That sucks. The only thing that we want as humans sometimes is for something wild and drinking from a fire hose to just like make sense, right? Like we would love to make sense of a 41-year-old athlete dying from double pneumonia and sepsis that he got in the hospital. We want that to make sense. That doesn't make sense, right? Even as you go through all the details, a terrible sinus infection, a lot of high altitude, he's in planes. It would, we start trying to layer and layer and layer all these things.
Because I don't fly in a private jet, so
yeah. And so we, that's just like we so desperately want to make sense of something like that. And the other thing is when you have, I mean, you look at a guy like Kyle Busch or you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant, there's an aspect of their gravitas, their presence, that we give a bit of a transcendent function, right? So we just assume that they would kind of go beyond these kinds of things, right? Like because we just assume that's a person that is going to be able to withstand the greatest challenges. And what's really, really tough about humans is us humans can withstand the greatest challenges and die from sepsis and double pneumonia in our 40s, right? Like it's a very, very difficult both and concept to hold, right? That you could go through, who has been on PA before, whose son got sober and then like 10 months later died.
Yeah, that's Shelley Viverito or who we went to music bingo for.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He had a brain aneurysm at work.
Like we do both of those as humans, right? Like we withstand an unthinkable challenge and our resiliency is present in every moment, and we could throw a clot.
Sure.
And that's a really, really tough thing to navigate. So when you look at, when you as a fan, or when you look at somebody like a Kyle Busch and you see this just kind of beloved figure that just kind of like takes no shit, and you have to reckon with the idea that anything can happen to him too, that's hard.
It's unsettling.
It's also deeply, deeply tragic, right? It's also unbelievably sad, right? Like I just mentioned, I'm not somebody that watches NASCAR. I'm watching.
You like have to be at the house, or I have to force you into a Daytona 500 pool.
I told you I really liked that one in Chicago.
Oh,
we watched that a couple years ago.
The July 4th road course?
Yeah, when they were in like downtown Chicago.
I mean, SVG won that.
I liked that, and I like that like F1 does that. Like that's that's stuff. I mean, I know that's not NASCAR. I'm aware. I'm not that far gone, but watching like Marty Smith and
cut his teeth in the NASCAR. He's a Southeastern guy.
Yeah, watching them make sense of this kind of stuff in real time and also be the figureheads for making sense of it for viewers.
And I mean, Marty Smith was so, which I appreciate, fucking choked up when he was given his first report. A couple of them were, you quote these amazing spiritual leaders and authors throughout the course of this podcast, and I have one. I'm going to quote John Haggerty. One thing that John, he swings a hammer and may miss the nail every once in a while, but
we all do.
Yeah, he said about Kyle Busch. He said, "Damn it, you were supposed to die on the racetrack." There's something. I was like, God damn, John, that's pretty fucking profound. Dale Earnhardt died on the racetrack.
Sure.
There's Kyle Petty. There's something about these guys, because it's a high risk sport, that like if he died on the racetrack, it would have been tragic, but it would have been different. It would have been different because, to what you're saying earlier, in a weird way, we make sense of the guys that died at Indy and IndyCar. Guys have died doing that sport, and everybody says that's how he wanted to go. Which is us.
Yeah, we get the benefit of that.
You got that, right? Because we're still here.
That's the same as when somebody is, when somebody says, "Oh man, I don't want to live to be 99 years old. I mean, that's just too long." And it's like, I guarantee you, at 106, 107 is looking real good. Like,
yeah, even if you outlive your money,
no matter how ready you might feel, we can't really speak to that for others. But yeah, I mean, we also kind of, again, it makes sense. Right? Sure. Like it makes sense. And part of it is, I had mentioned that we'd probably end up circling back to the concept, right? That there's this, the peak example of spiritual maturity is that anything can happen, is recognizing that anything can happen. Anything that we start to say can't happen to us is a little bit immature. To be redundant on here, is that, for me to say, like I could say with confidence,
I'll say it's a kiss of death.
I could say with confidence that I won't die driving a NASCAR.
Sure.
Right? Like, I mean, like there is a little bit, clearly, if anybody is dying to poke holes in the concept of anything can happen. Like, I understand that if we're talking about like death and dying, we're talking about sudden tragedy. That, I also know I won't die at 38 years old, right? Like I won't, like I've already done all of that. I won't die at 42. But if I were to be like, well, listen, I'm about to be 45. There's no way I'd die at 45
Could
years old.
die in New Orleans.
Yeah, like that's just not an option, right? Like I can't say that with any meaningful purpose besides like a little bit of confidence that there's no immediate signs. And the idea of trying to grasp these sudden losses through the lens of, hey, nothing is guaranteed, is not to put you cowering in a corner, just like waiting for the shoe to drop, right? It's got more to do with the discussion of how we can be a little bit more kind and patient and understanding with one another, because that's the kind of stuff that keeps us from blaming, like, because even if somebody who doesn't watch a sport and something bad happens to somebody, and the only thing that in the sport, and the only thing somebody has to say is like, I don't know why you'd play a sport like that. I don't know why you'd race those cars like that. I don't know. Yeah, but people do, right? Like that's not a hot take to be like, oh, Dale Earnhardt died, but if people didn't drive so fast,
right,
they wouldn't, right? Like that is not really a good discussion of how humans behave either. It's
they broke down his seatbelt mechanism and changed the game, because he didn't have other racers. Well, we got to have this. So it's same, He's looking for that explanation. And so they did a tribute last night. I was driving home from Indy, and I was listening. And I don't know if you saw any of the videos, but his now widow, it's hard to say, Samantha and Brexton were there, and his brother Kurt, who was a NASCAR champion. We're all standing there at pit road, and the president was talking, and she was, I recognize that grief as closely as I can. I just equate it to Tom, but I recognize it. Crying from the inner soul gut depth of your gut. Brave for her to be there. I tried to check out for 22 months, but
there's a lot. It's a very weird thing, and anybody listening to this, or anybody has been touched by grief, right? There's just like a weird mechanism for a lot of people, like how you get through the funeral. Like somehow
whiskey and Xanax.
You shake hands and smile at people through
about our
2 days.
Cultural process.
Yeah, I mean, people we seem to have something that allows us to people start making decisions, right? Like
big ones.
Yeah, and then eventually, whenever the dust settles and you have a little bit of an opportunity to feel into anything, then it hits. But we know with grief, it hits when it hits, right? Like, I mean, there's plenty of people that are.
When they shut the door at Renter's, you're supposed to be over it.
Yeah. Well, the invoice is coming. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's something where that is a weird sign of our resiliency, is that now, mind you, if you say, oh, well, hey, when my brother died, I did not do that. I sobbed immediately for months. Nobody saw me. I didn't even go to the funeral. Okay.
Sure.
That's okay too. Right. Like, but for a lot of people, they have stories of the funeral and like a luncheon and shaking hands and receiving condolences, and we just kind of like do that. And not many of us are ever going to know what it is like to do that, like on TV,
right?
Like that's a different level of vulnerability and exposure.
I just remember saying to Annette at Fisher's, shout out to Megan. That's Megan Bartlett's mom, Megan Holman's mom. It's her birthday today.
Happy birthday.
I said, Annette, I need VO and those bacon-wrapped chicken livers at Fisher's.
Sure.
Tom loved both. I obviously loved both as well. If he liked it, I liked it. And I just needed to make sure that those bacon-wrapped chicken livers kept coming out. And everything else was a blur, but I got some bacon-wrapped chicken livers, and I had plenty.
I remember going to Fisher's because I've said on here before, Inez Fisher was Grandma's client. My grandma cut her hair for years and years. And I think one year went to like a Christmas ball in high school and ate at Fisher's, and you picked ahead of time, right, the entree options for the night. And I remember everybody getting real mad because they picked something on the menu that was called chopped sirloin. And everybody's like, I can't believe this is just a hamburger. And it's like, yeah, what do you think chopped sirloin is?
They thought they were gonna find steak.
Yeah, like it's
fucking Altoff kids.
It's pretty close to a hamburger for sure. You're gonna love it. You've had it before.
I've been to. Yeah, I could go down memory lane at that Fisher's. A lot of weddings. Screech got KO'd at a wedding there. Believe it or not.
Hope he's okay.
He is, well, relatively speaking. Yeah. God bless him. You had mentioned that there is a I don't know if it's an antidote to this. Anything can happen overnight, grief, but about centering a spirituality or centering of a prayer.
Well, oh yeah. I went to. I had this really nice experience. I would love to be able to give credit to the woman that said it, but I'm gonna have to ask her first because I'd like to shout her out on here. She's a total sweetheart. But I have been attending a little group, a centering prayer group that I just started going to. And centering prayer is initially was out of a book called The Cloud of Unknowing, which is a 13th or 14th century book.
I feel like I've heard you reference this book. I don't know if it's on here or just.
Well, it had an anonymous author. Nobody knows who wrote it.
Right, but just say the title stands out.
Yeah, and some of the greatest spiritual texts have anonymous authors. The Tao Te Ching is like that too. A lot of people don't believe that Lao Tzu that wrote the Tao Te Ching existed. A lot of people think a kind of a collection of minds wrote the Tao, but
Kaiser Soze's stuff.
Yeah, because I mean the record keeping 2,800 years ago or whatever was not as good. Not that we're great with factual information now, but
Victor go the spoils. They write the books.
So first tragedy, then farce. But the Cloud of Unknowing, and then eventually in the modern times, centering prayer was really made popular by a guy named Thomas Keating, who was a priest who died in 18. And I attending this really, really beautiful centering prayer group, and centering prayer is really just sitting in silence, so it has a lot of overlap with Buddhist meditation and Zen meditation, and Keating was attended a lot of Zen meditation. It's always worth noting that all of the spiritual and religious figures that you admire all hung out with all the religious and spiritual thinkers from other religions and spirituality in their times. Like Thomas Merton is a really famous Trappist monk who was in a lot of interfaith dialogue and wrote a whole book on
Did they try to kill
Chang
each
Tzu.
other?
No, they all just hung out. The Dalai
Learned
Lama,
from one another.
Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu wrote a book
Shared
together.
wisdom.
Yeah, who would have thought? And so a lot of Eastern philosophy would have made its way.
I mean, Earnhardt fans can't even do that with Gordon fans.
No. But someday,
maybe.
Yeah, there's religion has had a lot more
Not
time
in Talladega
to connect. There's a lot of Buddhist influence and a lot of Greek religion. There's a lot of Eastern philosophy and a lot of Christianity and so on and so forth. The world's just not that big. And so centering prayer is just sitting in silence. But part of why I brought it up was in this group afterward, people we all started talking about kind of like longevity, right? Since we were talking about like sudden loss and everything here today. Talking about longevity or like the idea of like different ways to stay healthy and such. And some of the people in the group were kind of sharing the ways that they try to stay active, try to stay mobile, try to socialize more so that they're not isolating, like, just like a general talk amongst like really, really kind-hearted friends. And so one of the people that was there was speaking really eloquently about the way that she has stayed so active even throughout her life. And at one point when somebody said, "Oh, that's so great, my father-in-law struggled, he's put on a lot of weight, or he doesn't take care of this part of his health, or his diet's been a struggle, or, oh, my mom had a hard time getting around towards the end of her life." And like anytime somebody would bring up like a person's kind of like health failing them or their body struggling, this woman from the group would go, "And nobody chooses that." And it was the simplest, kindest gesture, that reminder of like when you're talking about an 83-year-old person who's having a hard time managing their diabetes and their movement and is maybe taking some falls. And as a culture, we want to move in this direction of, oh, well, you should be getting mobile, going for walks. We need to check this. We need to check that. What about the diet? What does he eat? What time does he eat? Does he get enough sleep? What is he, we really get into, essentially, we get into this fix-it mode that has an awful lot to do with kind of like immortality mode, right? Like we need to get into why isn't he doing things that would seem like he might live forever? And so we move into that fix-it mode. And it was such a gentle reminder. I've been moved about it ever since when she just kept saying, nobody chooses that, right? Like there's no reason to have a conversation about somebody's suffering only through the lens of what choices have they made that have caused their suffering. And religion does the same thing, like in suffering is a core word of Buddhism, where it's like, well, what are your current causes of your suffering, right? What are your current attachments? What are the things that you wish would be different that you cannot change? But I really think about that when we get into talk about health and we get into talk about mental health, and we get into talk about addiction and physical health, and even, what should somebody do when they suddenly have a bad sinus infection that becomes double pneumonia, right? Like any of those discussions, it's like, first of all, stepping back and being like, nobody chooses that, right? Nobody sat down one day and decided like, I really, really think I'm going to make this depression worse.
Yeah. Right.
Even if you were to say, right, but along the way they did this and they did this and they did this and he did this and she did this and they said this and he said this. It's like, right, okay, but those things are also done. And the person who's sitting in front of you now did not at any point contractually agree that like, this is how I wanted this to turn out. Mm-hmm. Sure. And this is not a conversation that like removes autonomy, agency, and responsibility from somebody. That's not what we're talking about, right? That's its own conversation. What I'm talking about is our tendency to want to kind of have control over a situation by becoming more blaming and becoming more kind of externalized and essentially just like telling someone, oh, you're not me. Like, oh, you're having a hard time getting around. I'm not having a hard time getting around. Well, if you did what I do.
Is it control or is it like, is it do we do that to, I don't want to say limit, because I don't know if we're trying to limit our empathy, but to control our own empathy, to just sit with that person and be empathetic and say, I know you didn't choose this. It's got to really fucking suck.
Yeah. I mean, I don't always know. I mean, sometimes it's fear, right? Sometimes it's a little bit of a failure of empathy, right? Like anything that we talk about on here,
Sure.
We never talk about anything on here that isn't really something that everybody does, right? Like anything that I might say, I'm not being prescriptive through the lens of like, oh, this is how you should do it because I don't do it that way, right? Like,
listen, I bet we both are guilty of doing what you were talking about.
1,000%. I have at any given time while sitting with friends or family probably spoken for countless hours about how other people should have handled something.
Sure.
Because that's just how humans are. Yeah. That's what we do. That's how we communicate. But, there is, and I would say, like, essentially in this example, I'm sitting next to a person who immediately became my spiritual teacher by saying, no one chooses that. And it's like, damn, you're right.
And it hit you.
Right. I'm gonna act like somebody chose it in an hour.
Right.
Somebody is gonna say, oh, so and so can't come tonight, and I'm gonna be like, well, if they went to bed on time, they wouldn't be so worn out.
Fuck.
Rather than,
Charlie this morning.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example, right? I mean, it's kind of a harmless example, right? Where it's, oh yeah, did he make the choice to stay up late? He did.
Sure.
Does he do that with zero awareness that the next day might suck? Nope. He knows. But as an idea of like, let's then treat him as if his crappy day is his own fault so that he like learns a life lesson from it. Come on. He's smarter than that.
Let's put a trash can in the center ice. No puck practice.
Yeah.
Bag skate.
Yeah. I mean,
they won't play like that again. They won't get beat again 3-0.
I love the idea of that kind of mindset at like an NHL level. Like, I'm not saying it happens, but like if you tell me a story about an NHL team who go out and they play like crap and then the coach keeps them on the ice for an extra 2 hours to really just skate the brakes off of them until they're exhausted. And it's like, I don't know, man. If you tell me that like Cale Makar needed that, I don't know. It's a hard sell.
I'll tell you, I spent with our mutual friend Ryan Miller at the Indy 500.
Yeah,
and I don't think.
I wish Ryan was my friend.
He's our friend.
I wish he was my friend.
I don't think that he's our mutual friend. I don't think that Otter was up there bag skating those Thunderbirds after an 8-1 Game 5 shellacking by the Wilkes-Barre Penguins. Because Ryan even said, Chris, we were playing on house money at this point. I mean, they had beaten, I think, that Providence Bruins team was like the 2013 Boston Bruins record setter. But yeah, at that level, I don't think they're bag skating to teach a lesson to not stay up late.
Yeah. It's just, well, it kind of speaks to a really, really tough thing that is part of, being human is we don't know an incredible amount about motivation.
I'm sorry. It reminds me of the time Jerome McGinley's 1,000th point game last summer was on NHL Network.
Oh, yeah.
It's against our St. Louis Blues here at home. And there was a line of DJ King, Ryan Reeves, and our own Cam Jansen.
Oh, great.
And I sent a picture of the game.
Got some size out there.
I sent a picture of the game to Cam, and I said, you watching this? Obviously he wasn't. I go, I just looked up the box score. You had a whopping 2 minutes and 36 seconds of ice time. And he said, 2 minutes and 36 seconds of ice time. Fuck you, Andy Murray. He's still pissed. And I think Andy was a little tough on Cam.
I believe it.
But maybe in that instance it was okay to do a couple bag skates. But yeah. That's what he was not happy about his ice time. And McGinley's, maybe that's not.
McGinley's kid is good.
Yeah, he is.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. That Iginla trade worked out for both.
Sure.
That's a bit of a Ryan O'Reilly trade, right? Like kind of works out for everybody.
It wasn't looking good until Tage Thompson put on about 100 pounds of muscle and started scoring 40 a year.
Yeah, the O'Reilly trade is one of those rare, right?
That
like
made
Tage
it
is great,
right.
and the Roar brought a cup here, and then
wasn't looking good for Buffalo when Sobotka quit and Berglund got shipped. Something happened to Patrick Berglund, and he never was seen again.
Yeah, but yeah, because the Iginla trade was Joe Nieuwendyk, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Nieuwendyk for straight up, and
right.
then Iginla, of course, goes on to be like the greatest Flame ever.
And Captain Joe was all right.
And yeah, and they won some cups in Dallas.
I want to talk about, not that we're done talking about centering, because I think that's really important to anybody that is suffering to have that remembrance of. And I like the example of like the elderly woman, and maybe it's because it just hit me because Martha's going through some stuff, but dear friend in her 80s that introduced Ashley and I, having some memory issues and stuff, and she came up to me on Wednesday night and was like, Chris, I've been waiting for 6 months to tell you how proud I am of you for starting this and coming this far. And I said, Martha, you tell me that every night. Every time
talking about needed to hear that?
Yes.
Good.
I said,
shout out, Martha. I know you're listening.
I said, Martha, I love you. You tell me this. You tell me every Wednesday. And she started crying. She didn't remember that she had told me every Wednesday and Sunday, to be precise. But who's counting? Remembers having some issues. And the thought of, people can get frustrated with that. Like, it's like she's choosing to, like, there was a time where I'm like, Martha, you're repeating yourself there a little bit. like, and like she's choosing to do that. So it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Something's come up courtesy, and it was I think I got to credit Ashley on an idea she had that I want to add.
Yeah, we should do that
to the show. Once every 4 or 6 weeks. I don't know.
Sure.
And it's kind of questions for the hosts. If anybody out there that listens has questions they want answered by Chaz, I don't know what I can answer them. We should open that up. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, I think Ashley and Holly had the idea, I believe, at dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did a great job of not interrupting their dinner. I think you received some credit for that. You were not in the chat despite them hanging out.
Yeah, where was I? Something was going on.
Sure, but either way, I mean, take the win.
Sure, but there was a reason.
Yeah. So I think that we'll depending on how if or when any questions would pile up. I think Holly's idea was every few weeks we have an episode or a portion of an episode that is just called "Needed to Hear What," and I think that's kind of the play.
Was this just on Friday where they went to dinner?
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie had the kids over?
Yeah.
Oh, you might have spoke too soon. I think I said to Ashley at one point.
Oh, so you got out of the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you knew Holly would not play that.
I think I said, 8:07 p.m. Charlie had 2 friends over and they were going crazy. I said, I'm going to Fridays to do heroin. That's what I text her.
Oh, good.
She said, are they still going strong? I'm on my way home. I said, I'm not sure. I'm at Fridays smoking crystal meth. She said, you're so dramatic.
Yeah, well.
Thanks for the compliment, though, Holly.
Yeah,
Ashley didn't check her phone.
I owe Ashley an apology.
It was a rough.
I owe myself an apology.
Yes, it was rough. Then you throw Gloria and Meadow.
We're having a nice dinner.
And
I even said, look at Pondoff.
Not in the chat.
Pondoff didn't say anything. He didn't do a play-by-play. There was no guilt trip. We were very proud of him. And little did we know, behind the scenes, he's threatening to ruin their lives.
I couldn't. It was getting bad. So if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions. One of my favorite Q&As I was ever at was when I was at a conference that Tom Arnold spoke at.
Yeah.
And
I love that Tom Arnold.
He was great. He was a really sweet guy.
Can you tell the Roseanne story?
Yeah, I would imagine he tells it everywhere. He's clearly a better storyteller than I am.
You did a pretty good job.
He
it was actually an ode to her, not to keep
no.
interrupting.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he was pretty vocal in his talk that she was a pivotal part of him getting sober, and very much so was like the one that pulled him aside and was like, "We're gonna get this figured out. We're gonna get this figured out together. We're gonna get you right."
God.
And
it's that we language.
Yeah, and you know, he was, and this is, I mean, I would have spoken at a conference that he was at in, it was probably 22, it's probably 3 years ago. Yeah. So I mean, it's like recent that he's telling that story. He also has a great story about thinking that he's getting Peter Criss, the drummer of Kiss, into addiction treatment, and it turned out to not be Peter Criss.
That's even better.
Yeah. But
he worked really hard on that. We met a guy who was unhoused.
Oh yeah, he thought he heard he says he heard a rumor that he was down just you know, playing drums on anything that would make a sound down under the piers
down to Venice Beach.
Yeah, and that he was like, well, I'm going to give back, you know. I'm going to get this guy some help, and he did get that guy some help, but that guy was not Peter Criss of Kiss.
He got that. I'm sure he got him into a place that looked pretty nice.
It was probably amazing. Yeah. East Coast, took him West Coast to East Coast. Yeah, took him across country. But Tom Arnold did a great job, because this is so hard where, you know, they open it up for questions, right? And
not scripted.
No. And the really, like, the first couple of questions that come out are really, really thoughtful professionals that are like, what is your recommendation for working with ambivalent, drug-addicted, 17-year-old boys with a history of complex trauma, right? Like an impossible question. And God bless him for being like, my recommendation is that they talk to you. Like,
right,
you are
great.
You are a therapist, correct? Like, you are in the field. You are a trustworthy source of information. I need you to know that and intuit your own education in a way that allows you to show up for these people.
What an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and admittedly, like, the handful, I mean, I have a very small sample size, the handful of like celebrity people that I have seen give talks in the addiction and mental health world
Flava Flav
are not,
shout out,
they are never like out of their lane. Right. They're never, I've never heard somebody other than, like, you know, I know, like, Tom Arnold was pretty vocal about, like, he's scared of those benzos. Right. But he's also telling stories of losing his friend Heath Ledger, losing his friend Chris Cornell, losing, you know, like, he's telling these stories of these people that he knew, and that he knew when they were sober and when they were kind of like, you know, struggling with addiction. And, you know, like, he's, you know, he's got his fears, but, you know, he's not prescriptive. He's not saying you must do this, we cannot do this. So I mentioned that because even if any kind of Q&A that we would do on here, you know, I'm going to be probably overly frustrating in the caveats of, like, here's the limits of what I know and don't know, because I want to be very mindful of that. But
buddy of mine is your client, and he says he just wishes you'd give him the answers.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I'm telling you, to your point, though, in all seriousness, that would be disingenuous at best for anybody gets up there and says with absolute certainty and dogma that this is. I go back to the conversations I have with moms, and I'm like, you know, they want me to tell you, stats want me to tell you what to not mother. You know, we've gone through what enabling is, and to do a counterintuitive for most moms, not all, to not mother. And I'm not going to give you 100% odds. I'm not going to say that's going to work. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I'll try to walk with you.
Yeah. I mean, there's an incredible need. It's a weird way to phrase it. There's an incredible need for humility in spaces like death, dying, illness, mental health, addiction, right? There's an incredible need for humility amongst the people supporting someone while they're going through it.
I'd like to get that Tom Arnold on this show.
Sure. Yeah,
I mean,
best damn sports show ever, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Him and was it Sal?
Yeah, I mean, he's great. And like I said, he's very down to earth and fun. And
didn't he show up all drunk at the driveway or something, trying to get in? And that's when Roseanne did that little intervention.
She handled it. For all of her since then fallings out with the world. I mean,
if you're more scared of benzos than that, imagine the scariness of benzos.
But yeah, I mean, I think there is I also think that there's something very meaningful about the opportunity to sit with somebody and say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like the I know part of something is relatively limited in how comforting it is. Right. Like I know if you go to treatment, you'll get sober, is like nobody feels that in a resonant way. Right. Like, because it's like, you don't know that. Like, you don't know that, like speak on what you know. Right.
Yeah. And it's to that point, because I'm replaying some conversations I've had recently. My consistent message is you are beating your head against the same wall. I surrendering and making this phone call is going to put you in the best position to make a change.
Well, you are a good example of somebody that has to have a fair amount of humility, because you are a point of contact for an awful lot of people who are going to say, I don't know what to do. Something bad is happening. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, and you are a bit of a bottleneck for those conversations. Like that's a role that you're in a lot of spaces.
There's a lot of your number.
There's a lot of different angles from which people are going to come to you and say things are bad. I don't know what to do. Right. And you don't necessarily always recognize it, but if you think about it on here, right, like you're going to easily move back and forth between that conversation from moms, that conversation with people in addiction, that conversation for people at a church, that conversation for people that that you used to drink with or use with. Like all this, you're pretty casually going to mention 6, 7, 8 different populations of people who all bottleneck to you with the conversation of, well, what should I do? And if your answer is you should do exactly what I did, you would be failing most of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that would be an incredibly limited view for you to take. So instead, you have to maintain the humility to be like, I don't necessarily know what you should do, but I will walk next to you in these next couple of steps to see what that looks like. You have to have humility to do that, right? You have to have humility to be a person who is maybe healthy and say somebody who's struggling with health didn't choose that. Right? Because it's only hubris, right? It's only ego that says, I didn't choose that. Yeah. Or I know what you should do next. Right? Like as soon as we get there, we're already kind of lost. The
only thing in those moments that I'm certain of is that when it's the addict or the alcoholic calling me and they keep going backwards or they're stuck in that quicksand, the only thing that I'm certain of is this isn't working. Mm-hmm. What you're and I know with certainty that you are going to really struggle to make a change alone, not with somebody. Sure. And that looks different to each person, but you're right now, caller, trying to do this on your own. And I'm wanting to give you the good fucking news that you don't have to.
Sure.
You have people out there with their arms are open, ready to help you. And I'll connect those dots, but I cannot take you by a leash.
Well, I also think too, like it's part of being willing to say like, gosh, I know that somebody didn't choose this suffering, or I don't want to act as if they did, right? Like even if you can poke holes in that.
People in active fentanyl addiction, they're not choosing to be unhoused.
Yeah, it's not their favorite, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
But the thing is, if you believe in something, like really, really strongly as like it being helpful, even like a phrase, right? Even as I come on here and say anything can happen is like a guiding spiritual principle for me or
Sure.
something like that. You also have to have the self-awareness to say, I know that I'm probably about to say something that either you know or you've heard a lot, but I wouldn't repeat it if I didn't think there was something important to it.
Sure.
Right? Like even just acknowledging, like under no circumstances do I think that I need to say to somebody, if you keep doing drugs, things are going to get worse. I'm very well aware of that, but there have definitely been times in my career as a therapist where I've said the obvious in a way to just make it real.
Yeah.
And say like, you're really struggling here. This is not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. And then when somebody can really truly say with their shoulders dropping, I know. Right. Like, and they can say that in a safe moment, right? Like that is different than just like, you know, just absolutely hammer to a nail. You got to knock this off. Right. Like
you've said it 100 times, if not 1,000 on this show alone, that as a therapist, you aren't telling anybody something they don't already know.
No. You know, I mean, even when you tell somebody anything can happen, right? Like even if I say like anybody can suddenly drop dead. Mm-hmm. There isn't anybody that would listen to that and be like,
really?
I'm going to have to check the numbers on that. You know, like instead it's going to be something like, oh gosh, that's what happened to my aunt. You know, it's going to be something like that, right? These are anything that we say is a reminder, right? It's Socratic, right? It's Socrates that was just like trying to help you realize what you already know, right? He was, you know, not trying to teach you something new. He's trying to ask you questions so that eventually you've answered so many. He's like, you knew the whole time. Where you been? You know, and so those moments of even for you when a mom is saying, I really don't know what to do, there's a difference between, well, I don't know either.
Yeah.
Right. Which is clearly hurtful and dismissive, and like, hey, I don't know what's going to work, but I know you don't got to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's the same answer, right? Both answers are, I don't know. Right.
So as we gear up for an episode of kind of this Q&A, we'll accumulate some questions. I don't know how many. We'll see what comes in and then how deep we can go. But I think the best way for people out there to ask those questions could be they can email me at cpondoff@pondoffsanonymous.com, or you can give out your email address if you'd like.
Nope.
You can email cpondoff@pondoffsanonymous.com. And we can accumulate, or because I'm thinking out loud here on the fly. I don't want to miss if somebody were to comment it like on one of the YouTube videos or even on Instagram. If I see it,
you'll funnel some posts so that we can make it work.
Yeah, well, and I'll have Kurt post it out there. But I think for now, we could advertise if you have questions. We did for like PAFO, and doesn't have to be. We do have a Google number where people can text or even call and leave a voicemail. We could give that out as a way to do this. It's 314-635-7004. Just say this is a question for Needed to Hear That for Chaz.
Sure.
We can accumulate those and we'll post it on the socials. Like, hey, we're gonna for anybody that's got any questions or call it a Q&A or question for the host, or maybe just the host. Question for Chaz.
You gotta go Needed to Hear what?
There. Oh yeah. And that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
Needed to Hear what? Question mark.
Yeah.
And
I love these dogs barking.
You can hear, but they do get filtered out a little.
Yeah,
bit.
I'm sure.
So now
but I can't stop thinking of that. That Will Ferrell had that documentary come out last year, and there's a great scene where he's in a hot air balloon with I think Will Forte, and they're up over they're in the Southwest somewhere, and they're up in the air, and they're talking, and you can he stops and he's like, "You guys hear that dog?" And you can hear a dog barking on the ground, even though they're in the hot air balloon. And just like out of nowhere, he leans over and he's like, "Shut that damn dog up! Shut your dog up!" He just starts screaming down.
Yeah. Oh God, that's funny.
So you guys at home won't through the wonders of technology won't hear the dog, but in here we're
he's
living,
hopping mad at something.
Yeah, they're having a heated conversation outside.
We and then you were saying something earlier, and I won't go too into the weeds of this wonderful dinner that we had last week. But what it was when the question was asked of Tom Arnold. And I was like, "Oh, that'd been a good question for our friend for you guys at the table that night, because that was the type of stuff we were getting real deep in." Really cool crew, and shout out again to Matt Bowersox for the invite, who will be on this show next week.
Yeah,
very excited for that. He's going to come on PA and stick around for Needed to hear that, so I can just pack a lunch and let you guys solve the world. But one of the funny moments of that dinner was you and Kevin got into this Odyssey.
Sure.
Before, I know
the great Greek epic poem.
Is this coming out to film, or what's going on here?
Christopher Nolan has made a version of the Odyssey that's coming out soon with any actor or actress that you've ever heard of. They're all in it.
Really?
Yeah.
So is it like going to be the big blockbuster?
Yeah, it'll be. It'll be huge.
When's it coming out?
I think in the summer sometime.
Because you guys really nerded out on this shit.
Yeah, right? Well, we've read it a lot.
Something about the Cyclops fucked everybody up.
Yeah, so we bonded a little bit over Odysseus. I love Mentor, the old
Was he
Salt.
the polyamory guy?
No, that was Scott Peck.
Sorry.
Maybe Odysseus was, but there's he wasn't. Odysseus he had a lot going on, but yeah, I mean, there's so many. The Odyssey is what's called the story of the West, because
is it Greek mythology?
Yeah, because it's considered a poem, but it's
I think
not what you would think.
Did they make me do this in high school?
I would imagine the Iliad was another big one.
Yeah,
Homer.
I'm sure I cheated off somebody, but
was the
and I don't mean my girlfriends, but in addition to that.
But yeah, the Odyssey is considered the what they call the story of the West, because the Odyssey is kind of like the original hero's journey, and the hero's journey, if we can get into the weeds a little bit, is what we would consider a monomyth, meaning it is kind of like the primary myth of the West. It's the one that everybody kind of like seems to be telling some version of, right? Like something
Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Something difficult happens. Your hero has to go through many trials and tribulations to get to the other side of it, to recognize their true self. Yeah, and
we're not talking about the same thing, are we?
No, I mean, we're talking about the same myth in terms of it is the hero's journey. But I don't know that his was heroic in the same way. I know that Tony wouldn't like that.
Apparently.
I understand.
The White House just posted that he's a hero in that house,
yeah,
too.
so it's I know that Tony Soprano wouldn't like that, but yeah.
It's brave Italian explorer.
Yeah, I've heard that. But yeah, so the Odyssey is kind of a monomyth. Bob Niemeyer, of course, talks about it a lot too, because there's a lot of aspects of how we grieve that seem to sit outside of the hero's journey, which is why we criticize them so strongly. They don't fit into this bad thing happens, you conquer trials and tribulations and find out who you truly are and get to the next phase of your life. That doesn't happen as easily if like your dad dies suddenly. You're not always just in a straight trajectory towards your heroics.
It's not linear.
Yeah, and so getting into a little bit different kind of like what we would call personal myth. So you will give yourself the grace to not always be on like a trajectory towards your resiliency. And so we kind of bonded over that. And Road Less Traveled is a good book, and he was doing a book club on that, I think, for the dads.
Yeah.
At his facility, and it was. Yeah, it seemed everybody there. I was by far and away the least qualified person at the table.
Get the fuck out of here! I was at the table
for sure.
Stop it.
It's one of the things I love about Matt is when I talk to Matt afterward. Matt views a lot of like that dinner or introducing people like he thinks like mostly he thinks through the lens of like what is that doing to elevate the people that he serves, right? Like he does not really think about it through the lens of like he's there to show off good stuff that he has going on. He thinks about it through the lens of like, this is a great opportunity for the people that we help, and I want to try to expand the opportunities for the people that we help. You know, he's like he's very savvy in that way, right? Like there is it is a form of humility that is very skillful.
Sure.
You know, like
I see it.
It's not egoic.
We have a lot of similar mission, and I really like I often, and I know this sounds egregious, or you can think I'm going creepy with it, which I'm not, because I don't do that.
I'll be the judge.
I fantasize about getting people in a room together all the time. Like,
this is why I don't get asked to do things.
Yeah, right. I just tell you.
I get told.
So because it's like I got to get you in a room with this guy and this gal and this person here, and I think Matt does it. I think Matt. I think that's why that dinner was like. Well, me and him are on such the same page.
Well, Dana and Michelle too.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to make sure we shout
Absolutely.
out everybody that were Jesus. I mean, just like absolute studs at the table.
And I think Matt and I just know, like, man, this is gonna work. So we just like to spare you the details, and say 7:00, Alvin Oak. See you there.
Yeah.
You ain't got nothing else going on, apparently.
No, not at all.
You know, I guess, you know, sorry, Holly, I needed him for a couple hours, you know.
Yeah. I mean, just good. Yeah, good people helping with some good humility and.
To your point, similar ethos. I mean, not very similar ethos. And what cool stuff is going down at Voyage with the. I mean, I saw your eyebrow raise a little bit in interest at the was it free diving?
They do some free diving, yeah, so that they can. It's always one of those things where if you want to engage people in things that will really, really help them, sometimes you have to make it like so cool and edgy, right? So like, you know, they have an awareness. I mean, I think that their primary population is like 18 to 30-year-old men.
Yeah.
And so young men essentially. And it's like, would it be really, really helpful to teach people how to sit with their breath and stay present in the moment for a few minutes? Yeah, I'm a pretty firm believer in that. It's a big chunk of my religion.
That's what I heard when he was telling me. Like,
but it's really not something that draws an incredible amount of people in, especially early in their life. Is just like, hey, why don't you sit here in this chair and follow your breath, and whenever you notice that your thoughts are wandering, come back to your breath, and you know, do that gently, and think of it like Jack Cornfield says, like you're potty training a puppy. When it moves off the pee pad, you gently put it back. You know, that's not what everybody likes, but for some odd reason, if we take that same lesson and say we're going to teach you how to do that underwater as a free diving exercise, a lot of people go, sign me up. And I'm into that, whatever gets you there. Especially because I like Kevin. I trust him a lot. He seems to do a hell of a good job. You know, it is something where we've had whole conversations on here about meeting people where they're at. And I would absolutely love to think that there is a world where everybody would really like to just come sit quietly with me and follow their breath. I know that that's not the world that everybody wants to live in. That is the world that some people want to live in, as evidenced by the people that come do that, you know, but I do think that even when you start thinking about things that can be really, really helpful, or that things are inarguably helpful, you know, maybe learning some mindfulness, learning some emotional intelligence, maybe moving your body a little bit so it can help you feel a little bit better. Even when you think about things that have all of these just like libraries full of evidence that they can be really, really helpful, and then you look at people who won't do them, can't do them, aren't interested in them, we look at those people and say, well, you're choosing to not get better, rather than starting with the humility of, oh, that person wouldn't choose to not get better. So I wonder what else is there. I wonder what else could be helpful, right? If I look at every 23-year-old man who doesn't want to sit quietly and meditate and say that person is choosing to not self-regulate. It's my ego that's doing that. It's my hubris that's doing that. If the guy next to me says, I bet some of those people would be willing to sit and quietly follow their breath if it was underwater in Jupiter, Florida, that guy is being a little bit more open-minded in his approach of like, well, people aren't choosing to suffer, right? Like nobody chooses that. Nobody's choosing to be emotionally unskilled in the truest sense, right? And so we want to have the humility to look at a situation and say, okay, under the assumption that you aren't just actively choosing to refuse your health and wellness, under that assumption, how can I be helpful? Like that is the question that we look at, right? Because if it becomes, I know you are choosing to be unhealthy or unwell, and you are not allowing things to be helpful with your choices, I'm basically just saying you and I are different and I can't help, right? And I'm the one saying that, right? So I do think that there is something really, really important about the humility necessary to say, man, I don't know. Here's some things I think can be really, really helpful. And if I think they can be helpful and you say they can't, rather than me saying, oh, you're choosing to be unwell, I have to go, okay, assuming that you wouldn't choose to suffer mightily, given like what are some ways that I can be helpful? And anytime I can pivot that way, right, it's going to be even better for me, right? Because I'm not hurting my own feelings with like, nobody cares about meditation. There's only 3 billion people that do it. Like I don't want to walk around with that chip on my shoulder, and so it's always nice to meet anybody who's kind of still has a lot of that creativity going. I would say that my teacher in this example that sits there and says, oh, nobody chooses that. That's creativity, right? Like that's a person who's still willing to be really, really creative with how they approach humans and what humans go through. And so, I mean, even do that for others and for yourself, right? Just go with the human assumption that a person it wouldn't choose that, and then say like, well, knowing that you wouldn't choose to refuse feeling better, I wonder what else is there. I wonder what runs deeper, and I wonder how I can be helpful. And hopefully somebody needed to hear that.
Amen.